10 anti-inflammatory foods for more energy, less pain, and better health. What if I told you that the pain you've been managing with a pill bottle every morning, the stiffness that greets you before your feet even hit the floor, the exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to touch, all of it traces back to a single fire burning quietly inside your body, and that the pharmaceutical industry has spent decades selling you ways to silence the smoke, while the people who came before us, the ones with no laboratories and no patents and no marketing departments, already knew exactly which foods put out the flame itself. That fire has a name. Doctors call it chronic low-grade inflammation, and researchers who study aging have started calling it inflammaging, because it turns out this slow burn is one of the engines driving almost everything we think of as simply getting older. Stiff joints, foggy thinking, stubborn weight, the tiredness that settles into your bones and never quite lifts. And here's what most people miss. You've been told inflammation is something that happens to you. It isn't. 3 times a day, every single day, you either feed that fire or you starve it, and the fork in your hand has more power over it than almost anything in your medicine cabinet. Stay with me, because number 8 on this list is a golden liquid that has been pressed from the same fruit for 4,000 years, and modern chemists discovered it contains a compound that works on the exact same pathway as the painkiller in your bathroom drawer. And number 10, the food sitting at the very top of this list, is a root so valuable it was once traded as currency, and it now has more human research behind it than any other anti-inflammatory food on Earth. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we post new videos every week that connect ancient wisdom with modern research and put that knowledge back where it belongs, with you, empowering you to take charge of your own healing instead of waiting for permission. Before we get to the list, you need to understand what you're actually fighting, because this changes everything about how you'll hear the rest of this video. Inflammation itself isn't the enemy. When you cut your finger, inflammation is what rushes in to seal the wound. That's acute inflammation, and it saves your life. The problem is the other kind, the kind that never switches off, the kind that simmers at a low temperature for years, decades even, quietly damaging tissue while you go about your life feeling nothing more dramatic than tired. Doctors measure it with a marker in your blood called C-reactive protein. When that marker sits low, your risk of the diseases everyone fears sits low with it. When it climbs, so does your risk of heart disease, of diabetes, of the slow erosion of memory and muscle. Researchers who track this in large populations have found that people whose diets lean pro-inflammatory carry a measurably higher risk of cardiovascular disease and die sooner than people whose diets lean the other way. Same age, same genes, often different fork. And the modern food supply is built to push you the wrong direction. Ultra-processed food, the packaged, engineered, shelf-stable stuff that now makes up the bulk of what most people eat, drives that inflammatory marker upward, and the more of your daily calories come from it, the higher that marker climbs. That's the fire being fed. So, let's get into it. Here are 10 anti-inflammatory foods that will give you more energy, less pain, and better health. Ranked from remarkable to absolutely miraculous, based on how much real human evidence stands behind each one. Number 1, green tea. The emerald cup that cools the fire from the inside. Green tea has been cultivated in China for well over 4,000 years, and it arrived not as a beverage but as a medicine. Buddhist monks drank it to stay alert through long hours of meditation, without the agitation that other stimulants brought. Think about that, 4,000 years of continuous use, across 2 of the oldest medical traditions on Earth, and not one of those cultures needed a clinical trial to tell them it worked. The Chinese called it a remedy for 100 ailments. Traditional Japanese medicine built entire rituals around its preparation. Ayurvedic practitioners in India adopted it for its cooling properties. Modern science has caught up. Green tea is loaded with a catechin called epigallocatechin gallate, and research confirms this compound reaches into the inflammatory machinery of your cells and turns down the signal. Clinical trials show it lowers circulating tumor necrosis factor alpha, one of the master switches your body uses to sustain inflammation. Studies looking at overweight, middle-aged men found it moved the broader inflammatory markers too. Green tea sits at number 1, precisely because its human evidence is the thinnest of the 10. It works, and it works gently, and it works as a daily habit rather than a rescue remedy. Here's the traditional use that still works today. 2 to 3 cups through the day, brewed just below boiling so the leaves release their catechins without scorching into bitterness. Green tea got overshadowed by coffee and by energy drinks engineered for a harder, faster hit, but those often leave you more depleted than they found you. Green tea offers what it's offered for 4,000 years, a steady lift and a quiet cooling of the fire underneath. It's probably sitting in a box at the back of your kitchen cupboard right now, behind the coffee you reach for instead. Number 2. Walnuts, the brain-shaped seed that feeds the firefighters. Walnuts are among the oldest tree foods known to humanity, cultivated for thousands of years across Persia and the Mediterranean. Roman writers recorded them as the food of the gods, and the nut traveled the Silk Road as both food and medicine. Why did a nut that looks so much like the human brain end up in the medical texts of so many separate civilizations that never spoke to each other? Greek physicians used them for head ailments. Traditional Chinese medicine classified them as a kidney tonic, a food that restores deep reserves of energy. Modern science has caught up. The walnut is the only common nut that delivers a meaningful load of plant-based omega-3 fat. And research confirms that fat is raw material your body uses to build the compounds that actively shut inflammation down. Clinical trials show walnut eaters raise their circulating adiponectin, a hormone your fat tissue releases that calms inflammation rather than driving it. A 2-year trial in older adults eating walnuts daily brought several inflammatory biomarkers down. But walnuts sit at number 2 for a reason. Short trials, 4 weeks or so, often show nothing at all. This is a food that works on the timescale of seasons, not days. Here's the traditional use that still works today. A small handful daily, raw, ideally soaked overnight, the way Persian households have always prepared them, which softens the tannins that make some people find them bitter. Walnuts got pushed aside by the low-fat panic that swept through nutrition advice for decades. But that panic stripped the very fats your body needs to build its own fire extinguishers. The walnut offers what it's offered since antiquity, dense fuel that calms rather than inflames. There's probably a bag of them in your pantry right now, bought with good intentions and forgotten behind the crackers. Number 3. Tart cherries, the crimson fruit that quiets aching joints. The Montmorency cherry has been cultivated in France since the 17th century, named for the valley where it was first grown, and cherries themselves reach far deeper into history than that. Roman legions carried cherry trees along their campaign routes. Persian and Turkish medicine used sour cherries for fevers and for the hot, swollen joints of what we would now call gout. Think about that. Physicians who had never heard the word inflammation were using this exact fruit for exactly the conditions inflammation causes. The Greeks recorded the sour cherry as a cooling food. Ottoman medicine used it for the blood. Folk practice across Eastern Europe kept cherry preserves specifically for winter joints. Modern science has caught up. Tart cherries are dense with anthocyanins, the same pigment class that gives them their deep red color. And research confirms these compounds interrupt the inflammatory cascade directly. Studies of runners finishing a half marathon found that cherry drinkers came through with markedly lower inflammatory markers and markedly less muscle soreness than those who didn't. Trials in people with gout have shown drops in both uric acid and that key inflammatory marker. And here's the honest part, which matters more in health than in almost anything else. Not every gout trial has replicated it. Some found no change in flares at all. The muscle recovery evidence is stronger than the gout evidence. Here's the traditional use that still works today. A small glass of tart cherry concentrate diluted in water, taken in the evening, which is also when its natural melatonin content does you the most good. Tart cherries got buried under a wall of brightly packaged sports recovery powders. But those are mostly sugar and marketing. The cherry offers what it's offered for centuries, real pigment doing real work on real joints. You'll find it in the juice aisle you walk past every single week without looking. Number 4, broccoli sprouts, the 3-day-old seedling that switches on your defenses. Broccoli belongs to the cabbage family, and cabbage is one of the oldest cultivated vegetables in human history, grown around the Mediterranean for thousands of years. Greek and Roman physicians treated the whole cruciferous family as medicine before they treated it as food. Cato the Elder wrote that cabbage surpassed all other vegetables for health. Why the sprout rather than the full-grown head? Because the young seedling concentrates the active compound many times over what the mature vegetable carries. Roman medicine used cabbage preparations for wounds and swelling. Monastery gardens across medieval Europe grew the family deliberately for the infirmary. Modern science has caught up. Broccoli sprouts carry glucoraphanin, which your body converts into a compound called sulforaphane, and research confirms sulforaphane reaches straight into the control room of inflammation. It suppresses nuclear factor kappa B, the master regulator that switches on the whole inflammatory program, and it switches on the protective pathway your cells use to defend themselves. Clinical trials in people with type 2 diabetes found that eating broccoli sprouts daily brought their inflammatory marker down measurably in a matter of weeks. Here's what most people get wrong. Boiling destroys the enzyme that makes the conversion happen. Chop the sprouts, let them sit for a few minutes, and eat them raw or barely warmed. Here's the traditional use that still works today. A generous handful of raw sprouts on a salad or a sandwich, daily, or grown yourself on a windowsill in 3 days from a spoonful of seed. Broccoli sprouts got forgotten because they can't be patented and they can't be shelf-stabilized, which makes them worthless to an industry that needs both. They offer what the cabbage family has always offered, protection built into the plant itself. You can start a jar of them tonight on the windowsill above your kitchen sink. Number 5. Leafy greens. The humble handful that rebuilds you from the cell up. Dark leafy greens are as old as agriculture itself, and older. Before anyone planted anything, humans gathered wild greens, and every traditional food culture on Earth kept them at the center of the plate. Egyptian records show them in the daily ration of the workers who built the monuments. Think about that. Every single civilization that survived long enough to leave records behind was eating these, and none of them had to be persuaded. Ayurvedic tradition classified them as cooling and cleansing. Traditional Chinese medicine used them to move stagnation. Monastery gardens across Europe grew them year-round for the sick. Modern science has caught up. Leafy greens deliver a stack of compounds that work on inflammation from several directions at once, including natural nitrates that relax your blood vessels, folate, and a family of protective plant pigments. Research confirms that people eating a diet deliberately loaded with green leafy vegetables show measurably less oxidative damage to their DNA, which is the upstream damage that keeps the inflammatory fire supplied with fuel. Here's the part that should reframe how you think about them. Greens don't work by being powerful. They work by being constant. No single serving does anything dramatic. 10,000 servings across a lifetime does almost everything. Here's the traditional use that still works today. A large handful daily, cooked briefly with a little fat, because several of the protective compounds in greens simply cannot cross into your bloodstream without it. Leafy greens got reduced to a garnish, a decoration pushed to the side of the plate, by a food industry that makes no money selling something a person can grow in a window box. They offer what they've offered since before recorded history, the raw material your body rebuilds itself from. There's a bag of them wilting in your refrigerator drawer right now. Number 6. Berries. The jeweled fruit that carries its medicine in its color. Wild berries fed humanity long before farming existed. Every northern culture built preservation traditions around them, drying and fermenting them to carry the summer through the winter. Nordic and Slavic folk medicine used them for the blood and for the eyes. Native traditions across North America used them for wounds and for stamina on long journeys. Why did so many separate peoples, with no contact between them, land on the same fruit as medicine? Because the color is the medicine, and they could see it. Anything that stained the hands that deeply was understood to carry something powerful. Modern science has caught up. That deep pigment is anthocyanin, and research confirms these compounds lower the markers of chronic low-grade inflammation directly. Dozens upon dozens of controlled human trials have now tested anthocyanin-rich berries, and studies prove they bring down both C-reactive protein and tumor necrosis factor alpha, the two markers that matter most. Clinical trials found that a daily cup of blueberries improved the flexibility of the arteries themselves. Not every berry performs equally. Cranberry trials have come back flat on these markers. The dark blue and deep red berries carry the load. Here's the traditional use that still works today. A cup a day, and frozen counts, because berries are frozen at the peak of ripeness and the pigment survives freezing intact. This is the one place where the cheaper option is not the inferior one. Berries got repackaged into sugar-loaded smoothies and cereal bars where a trace of real fruit hides behind a mountain of syrup, which inflames you faster than the berry can calm you. The whole fruit offers what it has always offered, color that does work. There's a bag of them in your freezer right now, behind the ice. Number 7. Ginger, the knotted root that shuts down pain at the source. Ginger has been traded across Asia for more than 3,000 years, valuable enough that it moved along the same routes as silk and spice, and it appears in the oldest medical texts of both India and China. Ayurvedic physicians called it the universal medicine. Confucius reportedly ate it with every meal. Roman households imported it at enormous expense. Think about that. A root, dug out of the dirt, carried thousands of miles by people who had every reason to carry something lighter and more valuable, because they knew what it did. Traditional Chinese medicine used it to warm the body and move stagnation. Ayurveda used it for digestion and for joints. Arabic medicine spread it westward through the medieval world as a treatment for cold, aching limbs. Modern science has caught up. Ginger contains gingerols and shoggols, and research confirms these compounds block the same inflammatory enzymes that over-the-counter painkillers target. Clinical trials show ginger supplementation brings down C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha together, which very few single foods manage. Studies in people with knee osteoarthritis found that daily ginger measurably reduced their pain. If you take blood-thinning medication, keep your ginger to culinary amounts and mention it to your doctor, because it acts mildly on the same system. Here's the traditional use that still works today. A thumb-sized piece grated into hot water with lemon, morning and evening, or simply cooked generously into your food the way half the world already does. Ginger got demoted to a flavor, a note in a stir-fry by a culture that separated food from medicine and then sold the medicine back at a markup. It offers what it's offered for 3,000 years, real relief for aching joints. It's probably in your vegetable drawer right now, going soft, waiting for you to remember what it is. If you're starting to see the pattern here, if you're realizing that almost every one of these foods was already sitting in an ordinary kitchen long before anyone thought to test it, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps this video reach people who are tired of being told their only option comes in a bottle. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join us, because we put this knowledge back where it belongs, with you. Number 8. Extra virgin olive oil, the golden liquid that carries a painkiller inside it. Olive oil is one of the most documented foods in human history. The olive tree has been cultivated around the Mediterranean for thousands of years. It's oil used to anoint kings and priests, to light temples, and to treat wounds. Why would a civilization pour something on a king's head that they could have eaten? Because they understood it as more than food. Egyptian medicine used it on wounds and skin. Roman athletes were rubbed down with it before competition and after injury. Modern science has caught up, and this is the discovery that should stop you in your tracks. Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal, and research confirms oleocanthal blocks the very same cyclooxygenase enzymes that ibuprofen blocks. Same pathway, same mechanism. That peppery catch at the back of your throat when you taste a good, fresh oil is not a flaw. It is the oleocanthal itself, and the stronger the burn, the more of it the oil carries. Studies prove that diets rich in olive oil bring down C-reactive protein and interleukin-6 compared to low-fat diets, and the longer the trial runs, the clearer the effect becomes. Here's the traditional use that still works today. 3 to 4 tablespoons a day of genuine extra virgin oil, unheated where possible, poured over food rather than cooked into it, so the oleocanthal survives to reach you. Olive oil got quietly replaced in most kitchens by cheap refined seed oils that were easier to ship and more profitable to produce, and the compound that made it medicine was refined right out. Real extra virgin oil offers what it's offered for thousands of years, a painkiller you can pour. There's a bottle of it on your kitchen counter right now, and whether it's doing anything for you depends entirely on whether it makes your throat catch. Number 9. Fatty fish, the cold water flesh that rebuilds your body's off switch. Coastal peoples have organized entire civilizations around oily fish. Nordic cultures preserved herring and cod through winters that would otherwise have killed them. Japanese fishing communities built a diet around mackerel and sardine that produced some of the longest-lived people on Earth. Think about that. 3 regions, 3 climates, no contact between them, and all 3 ended up eating the same category of fish and living longer than their inland neighbors. Nordic folk practice gave cod liver oil to children through the dark months. Modern science has caught up. Fatty fish delivers the long-chain omega-3 fats called EPA and DHA, and research confirms your body converts these into specialized molecules called resolvins, whose entire job is to actively end inflammation rather than simply block it. That distinction matters enormously. Most anti-inflammatory drugs suppress the signal. These fats switch on the resolution process your body already owns. Analyses of the human trials show omega-3 lowers C-reactive protein, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin-6 together, and studies in people with rheumatoid arthritis found real reductions in joint pain and stiffness. The evidence is stronger for the fish than for the capsule, and stronger for pain than for the blood markers alone. If you're on blood thinners, talk to your doctor before taking concentrated fish oil. Here's the traditional use that still works today. 2 servings a week of genuinely oily fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, and the small tinned fish are as good as the expensive fillet. Fatty fish got squeezed out by convenience and by a generation raised to find it too strong, too bony, too much trouble. It offers what it's offered every coastal culture in history, the raw material for your body's own off switch. There's a tin of sardines in your cupboard right now that you keep meaning to eat. Number 10, turmeric. The golden root that modern medicine has tested more thoroughly than any other food on this list. Turmeric has been in continuous use in India for thousands of years, entering the record as medicine first and color second. Ayurvedic physicians classified it as a blood purifier and used it for wounds, for swelling, for the aching joints of the old. It traveled the trade routes valued alongside gold. Think about that. A root worth its weight in precious metal, and the people paying that price weren't buying a spice. Traditional Chinese medicine adopted it to move blood and relieve pain. Modern science has caught up, and this is why turmeric sits at the very top. Its active compound is curcumin, and no other food here has been through anything like the volume of human testing. Analyses pooling dozens of randomized controlled trials confirm curcumin brings down C-reactive protein, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and interleukin-6, all 3 markers of chronic inflammation, together in real people, not in a dish. In humans, trial after trial. If you take blood thinners, keep to culinary amounts, and speak to your doctor. Here's what most people get wrong. Curcumin on its own barely crosses into your bloodstream. It needs black pepper, whose piperine dramatically increases absorption, and it needs fat to dissolve into. Here's the traditional use that still works today. Turmeric simmered in warm milk with black pepper and a little fat, taken at night. Indian households solved that absorption problem 1,000 years before anyone could explain why. Turmeric got reduced to the yellow powder at the back of the spice rack, while the same compound was extracted and sold back to us in capsules at a markup. It offers what it's offered for thousands of years, the most thoroughly proven anti-inflammatory food on the planet. It's in your spice rack right now, 5 feet from where you're sitting, waiting for you to remember what it actually is. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, you've just learned something extraordinary. These 10 foods aren't folk remedies or wishful thinking. They're the most rigorously tested anti-inflammatory tools we have, and the strongest of them have been sitting in ordinary kitchens for thousands of years, while we were taught to look for answers somewhere more expensive. Smash that like button if this video changed the way you think about the food on your own counter. And drop a comment below and tell me which one surprised you the most. Are you team olive oil, the painkiller you can pour? Team fatty fish, the off switch your body already owns? Or team turmeric, the root that beat everything else on the evidence? I read every comment, and I love hearing from you. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. We're putting real research back in the hands of the people it was always meant to serve. I'd love to have you on this journey with us. Remember, sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't behind a pharmacy counter. Sometimes it's in the spice rack your grandmother filled, just waiting for you to open it again.